Hello there. In this video I'm going to be talking about the new DJI goggles I received today. I've been out for a flight with them on my Mavic Pro and I've just got some thoughts that I want to share with you. So this isn't so much a review, but it's more of some observations and comparisons compared to the other goggles I own, which is the Fatshark Dominator V3s, the Headplay HDs. Now obviously these two we can't easily use with the Mavic because the Mavic doesn't have HDMI output, but I have used these extensively with my Inspire and the P3, P4, etc. Okay, so what do I think? Well, to be honest, I am extremely impressed. I'm gonna break this into sections because there's some detail I want to talk about specifically. So we'll start with the very basics, the weight. Are they heavy? Yes, they're substantially heavier than the Headplays and the Fatsharks, but I didn't notice it whilst I was wearing them. I wore them for 3 packs straight and had no problems wearing the goggles at all. My neck didn't feel sore, so yes, they are heavy. However, for me, it wasn't overly heavy. They balance very nicely because you have got the weight on the back with the battery, whilst the heavier end, you have got the goggles hanging over the front. It actually balances. So if you tip it on my fingers there, if you see there, the goggles actually balance very, very nicely. So what it means is the weight that's actually on your head is a lot less than you would think. Image quality. Now, I'm talking about this as an overall image quality because I'll come to the modes in a minute. But the image quality from the displays and the optics is substantially better than any of these two. When we're talking about looking at it from an aircraft source, the color reproduction is absolutely fantastic. The panels have basically no digital artifacts at all. One of the things I've noticed on the Headplay HDs is you're getting some image distortion or artifacts in the digital image. Now that is not from the live feed, but it is from the way the panel handles the information. You do not see that on these as far as I could tell. Absolutely. The image is crystal clear. It is cleaner overall than I've seen. The optics on them are very nice. It is a very large image. The optics give very little reflection. So I did notice with the Headplay you can get some reflection. You don't really see it on the Fatsharks, but on the Headplay with that lens you can get some reflection. On these I didn't get any reflection at all. I also got no fogging with them out in the field. So when I was out in the field using them, no fogging at all. The Fatsharks obviously fog up, as everybody knows. That's why they got the mask and the fan. Headplays can fog. I've had my Headplays fog a few times, but whilst I was using these for 3 packs today, no problems whatsoever with fogging. Okay, the image resolution specifically. Now this is dependent on what flight mode you're looking at it in. The Mavic supports 3 options. One of them is called smooth mode, which is 720p 60 frames a second. The second mode is HD mode, which is 1080p 30 frames a second. And the other mode, which is 720p 30 frames a second, which allows you to select any resolution the craft is capable of. With the goggles and the Mavic, there is a limitation. So in smooth mode, you can only use the aircraft up to 1080p 60 frames a second, and actually it needs to be in that 1080p 60 frames a second mode to use it. In HD mode, the aircraft swaps over to 1080p 30 frames a second as it does on the goggles. If you want to watch or use 4K on your aircraft, so do you want to be able to record to the camera in 4K, you have to use what they call leave alone, which drops it down to the 720p 30 frames a second. So what do I think of the difference between them? Well, the 1080p 30 frames a second is extremely clear. It is a very, very crystal clear image. It looks fantastic, if I'm honest. It's one of the best FPV feed images I have seen, period, across the board. There is no digital breakup from the image. There is no noticeable lag. In very fast yaw, yes, you can see a little bit of motion blur. However, nothing that I would worry about. In 1080p, it looks absolutely fantastic. Clear, brilliant. You then swap over to the 720p 60 frames a second smooth mode. The image does go a bit blurrier. It is a noticeable drop in quality, I found. I couldn't... Can you tell you're in 60 frames a second? Yes, if you move the aircraft very fast. For me, I preferred the 1080p mode over the 720p mode. I really did. I didn't find that the 720p 60 frames a second smooth mode offered anything for me that I didn't get from the 1080p mode. Perhaps I wasn't flying quick enough. Perhaps, I didn't... For starters, the lag. I could not tell the lag was really any more in the 1080p mode than it was in the 720. It's as simple as that. One thing with regards to the smooth mode, the 720p 60 frames a second, the Mavic doesn't have anti-aliasing in that resolution, and you can see it on the goggles. So if you're looking at straight objects, fencing, side of buildings, brickwork, something like that, you will get that jagged edged effect. It is very, very minor, hardly noticeable, but it is there. You do not get it in the 1080p 30 frames a second mode or any of the others. You only get it in that smooth mode. Overall, with regards to image quality, resolution, colour, absolutely fantastic. Hands down better than any set of goggles I've ever used. It's as simple as that. Okay, the next section, head tracking. How did I find it? For me, I think it's a bit too sensitive. Now, I haven't delved into the menu enough to play properly. They could do with toning it back a little bit, I think. Or at least have maybe user selectable presets for it would be good. One thing I did notice, now you've got two head tracking modes. One of them is purely head tracking that moves just the gimbal. So if you turn your head left, the gimbal will go left up to its yaw stop. If you turn your head right, the gimbal will go right up to its yaw stop. Then you've got the mode which is aircraft control head tracking, which instead of moving the gimbal on yaw, it turns the aircraft on yaw. Up and down is still handled on the gimbal itself. It's purely, it yaws the aircraft left and right. Now, both these modes work really well. However, I did find myself losing my orientation very regularly. So in the basic head tracking mode, I found it hard to know where I should be. Although you've got your limits either side, so you can only go to there with the gimbal. I found it very hard to see where I should be in relation to where center is. What would be nice is in the head tracking mode if DJI put like a marker at the top of the OSD just to show you where you are in relation to the aircraft nose. This could simply just be a line that shifts left and right, which centers in center. But I found I could just do with something to prompt me to know where center was again. With regards to the flight head tracking, which yaws the aircraft, it works very well. The way it works is when you turn your head left, say that much, it will keep yawing until you go back to center. So if you turn your head there and stop, it won't yaw that much and stop. It will keep yawing until you put your head back to the center, and then it will stop yawing. Again, I did find it difficult to figure out where I should be, where center is, where I should be moving my head back to make sure I'm not moving. There is the option to reset the head tracking under the menu. I don't believe there is a setting for this, but I would really like DJI to put that option on a C2 button, C1 or C2. So rather than have to go into the menu, is to be able to hit C1 or C2 on the RC and reset the head tracking point, because I found myself losing orientation regularly. It could just be me, I'm useless. However, yeah, having the option to reset the head tracking in the menu is brilliant. However, map that to a C button on the aircraft RC, please. Map that to that and we'll be straightforward from there. With regards to the head tracking, the only other thing I would like, and this would be a mode request, is I would like a third mode where when you turn your head that way and stop, it only yaws the amount you move. So in the current flight head tracking, it will yaw the aircraft. You do that and it'll keep yawing until you come back to there. A bit like a stick movement more than anything. What I would like is a mode that if you moved 3 degrees, the aircraft would yaw 3 degrees. That way. So you would almost, if you wanted to turn 180, you would have to pivot on the spot and turn 180. I just think that would be a nice option to have on the head tracking flight modes. What else? Sorry, I'm looking at my list. I had to write it out. The UI is very, very, very nice on these goggles. It is fast, easy to use, really smooth, really quick. No complaints at all. I think there's a couple of tweaks that I think they can do to it. It needs to be a bit more intuitive in 1 or 2 places. However, it really is very, very good. Talking about video, watching external video on this. Now, when I say external video, what I actually mean is watching a movie in your living room. So what I did was hook my goggles up to my Apple TV. I also hooked up the Headplay HD and the Fat Shark V3s, and I watched trailers on Apple and seen what I thought between them. Now, just to be clear, both these goggles, the Fat Sharks and the Headplays, will take a 1080p 60 frames a second input directly. The Fat Sharks will only take 720p. The video on the DJIs looks absolutely fantastic. Head and shoulders above the Headplay. Honestly, the image clarity and the colour, as I've said earlier on these, is absolutely fantastic. It really is. Another massive improvement over the Headplay HDs is the sound. The sound on these, I could quite happily sit there and watch a movie. I couldn't do that. It's tinny, it's horrible on the Headplays, you just couldn't do it. Although the DJIs have a built-in headphone socket, the audio in the unit itself is, for me, absolutely good enough to watch a movie. Absolutely good enough. However, if you didn't want to do that, there is a headphone socket on the side there. You can plug your headphones in and listen to your headphones from there. Reflections. Both these goggles have got some large optics. The optics in that are a lot smaller. Both will get reflections, but there's far less in the DJI. I find you almost get like the infinity mirror effect sometimes on the Headplay HD. You don't get that on the DJI. There is clearly some optics going on in the sense of you can see reflections top and bottom if you look up and down, but overall reflections off the back of the glass on the back of the goggles there, which is there, was minimal. Absolutely minimal. I could quite happily sit down and watch a movie without problem. The only thing I did get when watching a movie in the house, and I didn't get this in the field, was I did get some fogging on the DJI. I didn't get that on the Headplay HD, but I did get fogging on the DJI in the house. Did not get it in the field, to be clear. Only when sitting in the living room watching it, and it was only a little bit. Now there is a fan in there that kicks in, but I don't know if that has any effect on the fogging. I didn't notice it. It wasn't a massive difference. Overall, what do I think? There's a lot to talk about with these. There really is a lot to talk about. This video is purely just to go through some of my very quick thoughts on it. Resolution is absolutely outstanding. Image quality is absolutely outstanding. There was one quirk I did notice, and I'll explain that now actually. If you switch between the modes whilst in use, so obviously if you switch between the HD mode or the smooth mode, it also switches the mode on the aircraft, so if you are recording it will stop recording. So what happens is you go to switch the mode when you're recording and it kicks you out and stops recording, and then you can go in and change the mode. You can swap between HD mode and smooth mode, no problem at all in flight, you can do that. However, what you cannot do is, if you start in HD or smooth mode, you lose the option for 4K and 2.7K recording on the aircraft. You cannot get that option back unless you turn the goggles off, and then the options will come back up. So even if you change the goggles to do not change the aircraft, so instead of the goggles overriding the aircraft settings, the goggles just accept whatever's given to it, it still won't give you back the 4K setting. So if you've started in smooth mode and you want to get that 4K setting, the only way you can do that is turn the goggles off, then the settings will reappear on the Go app, you change it to 4K, and when you turn the goggles back on, but again in the mode that does not change the aircraft settings, then you can get the 4K option. So it's just a little bit of a quirk of the software, that is. It would be nice actually if DJI would change the mode so you could actually select the 4K in flight, not actually have to reboot the goggles. Talking about the flight modes, so I used the goggles with a couple of the flight modes, so tap fly, fixed wing mode, and a couple of things like that. In tap fly and everything, it worked really good. You actually use the goggles to select the tap fly point and then tap the thing on the side. Works brilliantly. I couldn't get fixed wing mode to work properly for some strange reason. Whilst I could enter fixed wing mode, I couldn't get the head tracking to work. My other complaint with fixed wing mode is the overlay is too much on the goggles display. It really is. You've got the tracks as you're moving. For me, it was too much. Now, you can turn all of the overlay off, but when I did that, I couldn't get back into fixed wing mode. I couldn't get it to accept fixed wing mode, it just wouldn't do it. So I'm not sure what the score with that is. I'm trying to understand, I need to play more to try and understand the ins and outs of that. For some reason I didn't get the head tracking working, but I think that was me, not the goggles. But when I got it all working the way I wanted to, I just found the overlay over the goggle screen was too much. I couldn't enjoy the image whilst I was doing it. In tap fly it works really well. I didn't get a chance to try active track, but again I see no reason based on the videos that it would be an issue. But overall in the flight modes you can select them all through the menu. The only other strange quirk was you've actually got the fixed wing mode option in the menu, but I couldn't get it to work on that mode. I had to go and do it in the DJI Go. Now whether that requires a new Go app next week, I don't know. Or whether that is specifically if you're flying for goggles without an RC, I don't know. But overall in the flight modes, yeah, it's actually very impressive. It really is. But anyway, final thoughts. These are the best FPV goggles I've ever used. It is absolutely that simple. They are hands down in every single way better than the Headplay HD and the Fat Shark Dominator. As I said, they will take up to a 1080p video input. They will take your SD card directly from your aircraft. Absolutely, hands down, the best goggles I've ever used. That's it. Thank you for watching.